In today's show, we're live here on YouTube taking your questions. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon today to get started. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. We're here live on YouTube, and I am joined by the one and only, the man from Yahoo, Dan Titus. Dan, welcome back to the show.
Josh, what's good, man? How you doing?
It's good to have you here, mate. It's good to be here in the fantasy basketball playoffs. For most people, the season starts to wind down and people have a lot of questions, as they always do. And we're going to get straight into those right now. John F. says, hey guys, I'm in the GF this week. I hope GF means grand final and not girlfriend. Well, could mean both. Who knows? Looking for a one-night only guard stream for today. Deep points league, so options are limited. Campaign, Javon Carter, or Rodney. I'm assuming that's Rocket Rodney Magruder. So what are we thinking here? To me, Carter is the highest probably upside guy, Dan, because we've seen him go crazy and have 20 points on 8 of 8 shooting, and then he has 2 points. But Payne's pretty limited. Magruder's the other interesting one, considering whatever it is the Pistons are doing. Which way are you leaning there?
I'd probably go Carter. I think that's just the highest floor, and I think that's kind of what you need right now. Campaign, I don't know that I can trust him even in getting 20 plus minutes. I don't know. I just can't trust him. And then you look at Magruder, I just don't know. You said it well. I don't know what to expect with the Detroit Pistons. That rotation is just a mess right now. I'd probably put more faith in a Corey Joseph than I would a Magruder at this point. But yeah, I mean, I guess you could try it, but I don't know. I feel like you're going to get very low return on that one.
Yeah, I guess the thing is with Milwaukee, Grayson Allen's out, so that does boost Carter. And Jaden Ivey's back in Detroit, which probably doesn't squeeze Magruder out of the starting lineup. I think they'll move him across to the 3 and start Ivey and Hayes. So to me, it's between those two guys. And I don't think it's egregious to go either way with those ones. This was sort of a coin flip sort of situation. LCPO, hypothetically, if Luka Doncic was to return and Kyrie is out, which I don't think is going to happen on Friday, I think both are going to be out. Do you think Josh Green can still remain viable as a 12-team guy just alongside Luka?
I think so. What we've seen from him, at least, the scoring is there, which I thought was kind of the surprise. Before he was, pretty low usage guy and didn't really take those opportunities to showcase what he could do offensively. But, in the last 3 games, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. That's what gives me the appeal, especially if Kyrie Irving's going to miss games. And from what he said yesterday, it doesn't sound like Kyrie's going to be returning in the next couple of games here. I mean, he's considered himself day-to-day, but I don't know, man. When you hear the word crackle and talking about playing into your 40, that just gives me pause. So, as much as Kyrie is pretty coy with a lot of things, I think he's being pretty honest here. So I think you could definitely ride with Josh Green with the Dallas Mavericks having 4 games in the next week.
Yeah.
No back-to-back.
Yeah, I don't think Kyrie is playing on Friday. From what he said, he was like, this is going to take a little bit longer than we had expected. So I actually don't think Luka's playing on Friday either. But I tried to look at some numbers here. I think part of Josh Green's a weird player because he's a low usage guy, and then Kyrie and Luka are out, and then he just says, all right, now I am a high usage player. There's not many guys that are like that in the NBA who just can go from 8% usage to 26. There's not many guys that do that. The thing is that I'm looking at his numbers now, that in the minutes that he's played alongside Luka without Kyrie, he's still got a usage of 13%. Now, some of that is skewed by the early stuff with Finney-Smith and that around, but not that and Dinwiddie, actually. If I do it without Dinwiddie, maybe we get a different sort of sample because Dinwiddie is the other high usage guy that was in that trade. But it has seemed to be in the games without Luka versus the games without Kyrie where Green has started to step it up. So I think he's an okay option, but obviously the value changed there because we get 40% of Luka coming in somewhere, and Jaden Hardy's probably still going to get some of his touches. So I think he's still going to be worth it, but I think there's going to be a pretty significant drop-off. It's not going to be... to summarize, I don't think Josh Green's going to be playing the role of Kyrie in that offense. I think it'll be a little bit of a different sidekick to Luka in that situation. Shapaz says, Tari Eason, is he worth holding to see if he can earn his minutes back, or is it smarter to stream his spot during this semifinals week?
I would stream it. 4 games against pretty good opponents. I think that Tari Eason, last game he only played, that was the first time he played under 20 minutes in quite some time. So I think you can give him a pass on that. Am I starting him confidently? Shallow leagues, no, but deeper leagues, yeah, I would definitely go for it. 40% rostered. If you have a chance to put him in there, it could definitely give you some steals and some rebounds. So I think that that's worth it if you're looking for those particular categories.
Yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence with it. I look at last game and go, you're right. Like 18 minutes is probably not going to be that low each game, but prior to that game where he started in place of Şengün, it had trended down for 4 games in a row. It had gone like 28, 25, 23, 18 or something along those lines, which makes me think that they're going back to that situation where he plays, especially with Jabari Smith playing 37 minutes a night, where they're
actually playing well.
Yeah, and they're limiting Eason to sort of almost being his backup, and every time you see, or anytime you see a game where Jayshawn Tate plays more than Tari Eason, you should be worried. I think he moves more into now down this situation where it's like, hey, did they have a really strong schedule in this chunk? Then that makes sense for Eason. Is he an absolute must roster you hold through a situation where he doesn't play for 2 or 3 nights? Then no, he moves into that streaming zone if they're going to run this way. And again, it's not a 1-game reaction. To me, it's a 3 to 4 game trend that are just slowly been tapering off, and that's where I get a little bit more worried in that in that sort of situation.
I'd say it's also fair that the games you're going to be able to start them is probably only Monday and Sunday's even questionable because they got 9 games, but they're playing on Wednesday and Friday, both 10-game slates next week. So he's going to be a back end guy that you're going to have to fit in your lineup on a specific matchup. Yeah. And I don't know that you want to do that. Yeah,
that does make it tougher for sure. Josh Secker says, what do we do with Xavier Tillman? Xavier Tillman. Sorry, what do we do with him? Because the last couple of games, Dan, they're dropping him back. They're playing like 23 minutes a night, playing a lot of Jaren Jackson Jr. at center. So do you think Tillman is still a hold?
I'm holding him. It's really just the schedule for the Memphis Grizzlies. I mean, they got that 4-4-4, that Jay-Z for the last 3 for the playoffs. So weeks 21 through 23. Right now, I mean, Steven Adams out for the season. Yeah, Jaren Jackson Jr. is getting more minutes there at the center spot, but I don't know, man. I think he's still going to be a good source of rebounds and steals. Field goal percentage is definitely always solid too, and maybe he'd get you a cheap double-double. I don't think he's droppable yet, just given the schedule and what they're going to need from him in the front court, especially going up against teams like the Warriors next week, as well as the Mavericks.
He's also a really good steals guy. He's like not quite Andre Drummond because he was like a 20 rebound guy, but in terms of that stat pro, Andre Drummond was one of the best steals guys in the NBA in his prime, and so you don't really get that out of centers. And Tillman's actually been a pretty high steals guy. So I am holding him for now, but obviously a 23-minute trend is a little bit worrisome. LCPO. With the news of Colin Sexton being out another week, I have the feeling that Sexton might not play again this season, with them perhaps not prioritizing winning and him suffering hamstring injuries, which, as we know, take a long time to heal. So he's out on this end of the week. Clarkson's partially practicing. Are we adding Kris Dunn? Do we prefer Dunn for assists and steals over Caruso and Melton? I do. I do prefer Dunn for assists and steals over those players. I would add Kris Dunn because in 23 minutes he actually gets it done as a top 100 player. And yeah, they've had a shit schedule, Dan, but now we're at the stage where what day is it? We're Thursday. They play Saturday, but then they play Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So starting Saturday, they've got 5 games in 8 nights, which then turns from a terrible schedule into a really, really good schedule. So if you want to get ahead of it, go ahead and do it now. Like, it's great value.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Kris Dunn and also Taylor Horton-Tucker. I mean, dude's a turnover machine, but this guy is getting heavy usage, a lot of steals. I mean, it's not steals. Getting a lot of assists, but also contributing for those rebounds. But I think that's the differentiator between him and Kris Dunn, is that Kris Dunn can do it efficiently, and just been remarkable in terms of steals and assists coming off the bench. But I do like the matchups next week. Couple of games versus the Kings, high-paced team, scores a lot of points, going to be up and down. So he'll have a lot of time to get some of those minutes in there and contribute for you in the semifinals.
We'll get back to more of your questions in a second, but today's episode is brought to you by the Nissan Ariya, and it's time for me to tell you who the most electric player of the week is. And I'm going to tell you that the most electric player of the week is Joel Embiid. He's played 3 games this last week, and he's averaging 36 and 11 with almost 4 blocks, shooting 62% from the field. We know that Embiid is strong. We know that he is fierce, but there's a certain elegance to the way he goes about things, exactly like the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, which I know that you guys, Dan, you would say Nissan. What's Nissan? That's how we pronounce it here. It's called Nissan, not Nissan. And I don't know why, and I can't explain it, but that is how it is pronounced here. But we are here to talk about Joel Embiid and his fierce and elegance, exactly the same as that Nissan Ariya. Delivers on duality, a combination of fierceness and elegance, beautiful and strong. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pin-to-your-seat power and premium intelligence all in one EV. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. All right, let's go back to these questions. I did see one that was interesting. Oh, here we go. A lot of people have asked me this. Your Hudson Valley Realtor says, is Poku worth an ad? We know that he's back in the G League now, Dan. To me, it's a very, very strong no. But where are you on adding Alexei Pokusevski at the moment?
No, I'll pass. I think you can find better options on waivers that aren't in the G League right now that are probably going to be, he's going to be ramped up, the rotation. I want no parts of Poku at this point in the season.
Yeah, like he's not playing for the NBA team. We don't know when he will play for the NBA team. We don't know how much he will play for the NBA team when he plays. And remember, Dan, when he played for the NBA team early in the season, it was one of the biggest headaches in fantasy ever. Like he'd have these stretch where he'd play like, oh man, he's 15 and 10 with 4 blocks, and that's sick. And then he'd have 2 points in 12 minutes for 3 games in a row. And you go, what do we do here? And then he'd start the first half and he'd get benched for the second half. And you'd be like, I don't want to deal with this nonsense at all. Like I can't bother roster, let alone rostering him. At least I know I'm going to get consistent zeros from him at the moment. That's the only thing that I'm happy. And in that time, both Jalen Williams have ascended, and I'm not sure Poku jumps back into a sizable role on that team, so absolutely not. There's no way that I'd be bothered streaming him at this point.
I'd rather have Bay Will for sure.
Yeah. So would I, but I don't think I even want him. Well, actually, let's just take that. Would you have Jalen Williams, the big guy, Pig Williams, would you have him in a 12-team league? To me, he's sort of on the outside of that. He's more of a 14-team league guy.
I would say it's probably more of a 14, but I mean, I think it could definitely come into a point where, you need some contribution in the middle of the week. I mean, the Thunder do play 4 games next week. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. He could definitely be a stream, especially on that Thursday versus the Clippers. Definitely an opportunity with only 4 games on that day. You could definitely throw him in the lineup, get some rebounds, maybe a 3, potentially a block or 2.
Yuri Ono says, do we stash the Time Lord Robert Williams? Or he says, hey, Mark, but it's not hey, Mark. It's oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Mark Williams. So so both these guys are out. We got an update from Rob Williams at maybe the next week or so. We haven't had an update on Mark Williams, but that's because the Hornets never give updates. And my working theory on this, Dan, is that Williams is done for the season. I said that as soon as he hurt his thumb. I said this is torn ligaments. They're not going to rush him back, but they're going to list him questionable or doubtful for a couple of weeks in a row, and they're not going to tell us. I don't know that for sure. I am completely speculating on the type of injury he had, the situation where they are in the season, and their incredibly shitty injury reporting. So I'm not particularly confident in Mark Williams coming back, but I am confident in Rob Williams coming back at some point. So, which one of those 2 guys would you be looking to stash?
If I had the option, it would definitely be Robert Williams, but I don't know that I have a whole lot of confidence in him being a huge contributor down the stretch here. I mean, they need him for the playoffs, and the Boston Celtics are that gap between them and the Bucks continues to expand, and who knows, the Sixers could catch up to the Celtics very quickly here. So, in limited minutes, it's a good thing. Robert Williams is a per-minute beast, so he'll probably be more useful than Mark Williams. And I would probably be pivoting towards Big Dick Nick Richards. He's probably going to be the guy that's going to be the one that's going to be playing the majority of the minutes here in the head into week 22. The Charlotte's got 4 games, tough schedule, a couple times versus Dallas, New Orleans. I think he could actually have a really good week playing against those big men.
I think there's going to be a point here in the next couple of weeks where we're actually saying, you know what? I think Kai Jones is going to be an ad. I think it's going to happen. I think they're going to do something.
God.
And he's terrible. He's one of the worst players in the NBA, but he can put up interesting fantasy numbers. And I think that we saw Richards get limited a little bit last week. Richards could get hurt. And I just think at some point they'll just say, hey, Kai, let's see what you can do in 25. And I
see what he can do.
I just think it'll happen. And then we'll get the Kai Jones questions. And I'll be like, oh my God, really? And it'll be a legitimate question. This is an interesting exercise here for us, Dan. Joseph Kim says, for the next week, would Kyle Anderson be a hold after Wednesday? They have 3 days of no games before their last game. Now, we talk about having these gaps in your schedule and having these zeros for periods of time, whether they're worth it. So they got a really strong schedule. Friday, Saturday, back-to-back, and then Monday, Wednesday. So they play 4 games in 6 nights here coming up, which is really good, and Anderson's been amazing. And we're not expecting Karl Anthony Towns back in this time frame, but with 3 zeros, Thursday, Friday, Saturday next week, is Kyle Anderson above that cut line where you would say, if this is a Lauri Markkanen or a Julius Randle or a Donovan Mitchell with 3 games, you'd say, absolutely. I'm holding them. It doesn't matter that I'm getting zeros. Kyle Anderson is not thought of in those breaths and that company, but the way he's been playing puts him not that far behind them. Does he pass that cutoff for you where 3 days of no games for 1 day, 1 game at the end of the week, is that enough for you?
I think so, man. He's proven it. Two triple doubles in his last 3 games, 7 rebounds and 8 dimes last night. I don't see how you could bench this guy or cut him at this point in any league. Just way too valuable. The minutes are there. Ever since the trade deadline, he's been, a top 40 player in fantasy. So I don't see how you could make that move. I would put him in that echelon of the Markkanens of the world at this stage in the game. I would you got to hold.
I think you do as well. The only thing I'll say is there is a team that between Thursday and Sunday plays 3 games in 4 nights that gives you 2 extra games over Anderson. And it is, no matter how good you are, it is really, really hard to provide 3 games worth of value unless you're Jokic or Embiid, unless you're the top 5 players, because you might get a waiver wire guy that averages 10, 5, 2, and a steal. All right, and that's 30, 15, 6, and 3 steals. And Kyle Anderson's good. He's not that good. Is those 2 extra games is probably, you're getting 2 extra games is probably enough for me to have that thought process. The other thing you could do there is, again, because you're not getting 3 extra games because of Anderson playing on that Sunday, but it's going to be tough. It is going to be tough to figure out. But if your season goes into the week after that, then I would hold on to him because I think you still get that benefit, and they play 4 games the week after as well. But if that's your final week, I reckon it almost leans you towards, hey, I probably have to get the extra 2 games in and go from there. But it is a tough one. He's very much on that border. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because it made me think quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a good problem, man. That 3 days, that's definitely going to be a tough decision. I think I would probably just play it as where do you stand in terms of the weekly head to head? What categories do you need? Because you might have to cut bait just to salvage, getting a couple more games out of a couple other streamers if possible. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't come to that.
3 questions here. Joel Cuthbert says, does Kawhi play in the upcoming back-to-back? Does Zubats play both? I think Zubats does. I actually think, Dan, there is a significant chance that Kawhi plays in this weekend back-to-back. What say you?
I think he does. I think this is a crucial stretch for the Clippers. They're finally getting right. They won 4 straight after losing 5 in a row. This is a huge momentum swing here, and they're going to need to hold their place in the Western Conference. So I do think that Kawhi will play heading into this weekend.
I do. I'm not 100% confident with it, but I am more confident than I've been at any other stage of him playing a back-to-back.
Yeah, if you were asking me this in December, I would be like, hell no, he ain't playing.
I feel okay about it. I'm not sure, but I feel okay about it. Andrew says, I'm seeing updates on Miles Bridges coming back this month. No, you're not. I don't know where you're seeing these updates because they're not there. Good to pick up right now? Absolutely not. One of the worst decisions you can make would be to pick up Miles Bridges. Do not pick him up. I don't know where you're seeing these reports. They don't exist as far as I'm aware. Unless something has dropped in the last hour or so, these things do not exist. Do not add him. Please, for the love of God, don't do that, Andrew. And if someone in the chat has seen something different,
morality, bro.
Just he's not going to play. Forget. Don't worry about morality. He's just not going to play. No. Vin, here's a question for you, Dan Yahoo Titus. Why did Yahoo remove the INJ designation for Ja? I know the answer, but can you give us the answer?
Why didn't they?
Why did they? Because he was listed as injured, and now he is not.
Because of the backloaded or the time served, I guess you could say. Now he's going to be eligible to play in 4 days now. So, he's not suspended and he's back with the team. So there's no reason to hold him into that injury thing. You probably have a better answer than I do.
I do have a better answer. The answer is initially they listed him as injured because he wasn't suspended. He was away from the team. And Yahoo, the guys who do that, I don't even know who does the injury designations, Dan. The guys who did it said that it was akin to a mental health break absence. And
okay, so that qualifies like a
listed him
type
as,
of thing.
yeah, so they listed him as injured / unavailable due to mental health, which, yeah, whatever it was, counseling retreat. And now that he's officially suspended, the reason he is out is suspension. They don't include suspended players on the injury list. He was not suspended until 2 days ago. He was away from the team for personal reasons, which they count as an injury, a mental health type of thing. And that's what happened. And I saw them tweet this a few times. And as soon as he officially got suspended, he is not considered injured because he's suspended. And that's how they run things. Again, another advertisement for using IL Plus instead of just the regular IL. So anyone who is out, you can actually put them in your injured slots rather than having to wait for designations to come through. Is Keegan Murray a hold?
Oof, man, he has been rough.
He has. Whoa, hang on a sec. Just before we do that, Lonzo Ball having another surgery on his left knee and will miss most of next season. That is,
dude, he's Brandon Roy, man.
That's
it's happening.
Yeah, that's it for him. Sure, that's bad, man. So he's out for next season.
That's his fourth surgery in 2 years?
It says Woj's saying here it's his third.
Third surgery. Okay.
But yeah, it started in January last year, so it's in 13 months, whatever it is.
That's brutal, man. I hope he gets better, man, because I think that the Bulls would have been a completely different team if he was actually active and playing the level of play that he was at. I mean, the 3-point evolution that he had and the ability to rack up the steals and the blocks from a guard, man. Like he was definitely a very exciting fantasy player.
He was so fun, man. Like he's such a good player and such an underrated player. But man, that is rough. Anyway, back to this question from Michael Scott: is Keegan Murray a hold? And you said he's been rough. He has been. He has been not only rough, he's been actively bad quite a few games recently. But the Kings, Dan, the Kings' schedule is unbelievably good. So do we hold him for that reason?
Yeah, I'd hold him through at least Tuesday. They got a back-to-back to open up the week against Utah and Boston. I would drop him after that if you don't see any production. But they do also have another back-to-back Friday and Saturday, which is kind of interesting. But at that point, you know, the teams that they're playing against, we got the
Phoenix
Suns and Utah again. That Phoenix matchup is probably going to be a little bit rough. Yeah, I would be okay dropping him after Tuesday if you're not seeing the return that you were expecting.
Yeah, but they play Thursday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday here coming up. So yeah, that's he might have 4 subpar games. He might have 3 bad games and 1 good game. But there's not many teams that over this period of time, and I detailed this on the show the other day, that have as good a schedule as the Kings. It's only the Magic. Only the Magic have as good as a schedule over the next 6 days or so as what the Kings do. So we know he can struggle. We know Kevin Huerter can struggle. We know Malik Monk is up and down. But the volume of games you get in there, like you're probably going to hit one good one, maybe, out of those games, and they get the extra game as opposed to all other teams, which gives you a little bit of a buffer. So while he is struggling, that schedule advantage over 28 other teams puts him into that area of, I think we hold, even though it hasn't been particularly good. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. We know that life can be tough, whatever it is that you're dealing with, new work, new job, new partner, ended relationships, children, school, whatever it is. There are things that we need to be able to do to be able to cope with things in our life. And therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk things through. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You can just fill out a brief questionnaire and it matches you with a therapist who's best aligned to you. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, because having that connection is really important, you can just switch your therapist free of charge over at BetterHelp. So discover your potential with BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Back to the questions for the final run here. Okay. Here's a question that we don't have to get too specific, but I think it's interesting. Rodrigo Limo says, "What's your biggest frustrations this year? I will never draft Gobert again."
I love that you started with Gobert.
Okay, so my biggest frustration is I don't really have one in that way. Like, my frustration is things like when the Pacers come out and they say we're going to start Jalen Smith, and I go, that's weird because he's terrible. But why are you committing to starting him? And I buy into it because he does have a nice fantasy skill set. And then they realize what I realize, that he's terrible, and they bench him completely.
Garbage.
And I go, why did I not believe myself? But versus what a team is saying. But they must know something more because they signed him immediately and they promised him this job. So maybe they know something. That's frustrating to me. But I want to just get into the mindset here, Dan, of say I will never draft Gobert again. Well, I think that's just completely silly. Like, did he have a great season this year? No. Was he terrible? No, he wasn't. He was just slightly worse than what he was in previous years. But you're telling me that you're drafting and everyone's going, fuck, Rudy Gobert, man. This guy sucks. He's terrible. What a terrible trade. Why is he paid so much? There he is at pick 60. You're going to pass on him because you drafted him last year. Get out of here. That's just bad fantasy to me.
Yeah, so with Gobert, I think it's more about it was the fit. And I think once they got rid of D'Angelo Russell, the fit became that much more clear when you have a true point guard like Mike Conley, who already had a relationship with him. They already had that chemistry. He played better. The thing that hurt me this year with Gobert was that his blocks were almost non-existent compared to years past. If he can get that back, you're looking at a top 30 guy again. And he's not been that bad. Again, he's like top 50. Yeah. He's top 55, right? I think more of the frustration for me with Gobert and other fantasy players like Giannis Antetokounmpo was the missed games. Gobert was actually pretty reliable for much of his career thus far. He's been going in and out of the lineup. I mean, just been kind of frustrating. But the other person you mentioned, Jalen Smith, was he was my biggest disappointment this year in drafting. I had him ranked 75th coming into the season, and he's well outside 200 right now. Hot garbage. And the fact that he got passed by Aaron Nesmith, a 6'4" power forward, it's just not a good look. So, I think that was the biggest miss probably for me. Along with the Houston Rockets were, I think, probably the most frustrating because, I mean, Steven Silas, man, just figure it out, bro. You got to play through Alperen Şengün. And, it just took too long. They only have one player that's inside the top 100. That's disgraceful for how much talent is on that roster and how bad they are. That should be a fantasy gold team.
Yeah, so, they've been very disappointed. That takes us to a question here from Miles, who says, historically, you've said it's not worth drafting with tanking in mind, but it seems like the Hornets, Spurs, Pacers, Pistons are. Do you still feel the same for next year? Well, again, Miles, at the start of the season, who are you avoiding for tanking? Because people were like, I'm never drafting a tanking team, and they were listing off 8 teams, taking out a third of the player pool. But
Utah was one of those teams, and that ain't no tanking team now.
I'm never drafting Shea. The Thunder are just going to tank for draft picks in perpetuity. He's going to sit out every game. All right, how did that work out for you? And you've listed here these 4 teams, but the team we literally just talked about has been the worst team in the NBA for 3 years. But there's been absolutely no change to their rotation, the Houston Rockets. So, are they tanking? Yes, they are. Are they doing anything that impacts fantasy from that sort of shenanigans standpoint? Not really. I don't think the Hornets are doing anything. What are the Hornets doing that shenanigans-wise? The Pacers...
Terry Rozier is actually playing. I figured he would have been shutting down by now, but he's still being out there. Kelly Oubre...
Gordon Hayward's playing. Yeah. There's not... Yes, the Pistons, annoying, right? But they also, Jaden Ivey is coming back. Killian Hayes is still playing. Jalen Duren returned to action. So there is some weird shenanigans going on with the Bogdanovic thing, which is frustrating for sure. But that's really one player. And the Spurs, well, they've been a mess since about November, December. And that we didn't really think they'd be going into these weird on-off patterns that early. And that's one. But you couldn't have... the Spurs had, I think, the 4th or 5th highest win total over-under at the start of the season. Nobody thought that they'd be going as hard into it as what they are. And my point is that, yes, it's annoying when teams or players get shut down. Again, apart from Bogdanovic, it really hasn't happened so far this season in terms of fake injuries and players not... It will start to happen in the next couple of weeks, but it hasn't happened yet. But you can't predict it. If you just cut off, well, I'm not drafting from these 8 teams, you're not going to have a good time. And if you knew exactly that at this time of the year the Pistons would be sitting these sort of players, then sure, don't do it. But you don't, so you're creating an extra variable that I don't think gives you much benefit.
No, and I think it's kind of hard to predict how the seasons are going to go, right? I think it was pretty foregone conclusion that the Detroit Pistons weren't going to be that good, but I mean, no one was really saying that they were tanking until Cade Cunningham was out for the season, right? They had a shot to be better.
Well, they didn't because they got Dwayne Casey, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, true. That's fair. But yeah, the Hornets, I mean, if LaMelo Ball doesn't, have a bad ankle for the entire season, what's their fortune going to look like? So I don't think you can go into the season assuming, hey, this team's going to be, in the runnings for tanking. Like, there's still value to be had there. And if you think that tanking is going to be that serious, you can always trade people mid-season at their highest point to find and target people that you think are going to be better down the stretch. I don't think you should be, writing them off completely at the beginning of the season just because of what you think might happen or may not happen. Because, the Jazz are one of the best teams, I think, surprising. Like, Walker Kessler shot up my ranks this year. And that's a guy that, I think has really surprised a lot of people that you would have been avoiding had you thought that the Utah Jazz were tanking just because they traded all those people away from, and plus, trying to trade away Rudy Gobert as well.
That's like the Cavs last year. The Magic, who were thought to be bad, like nothing's happening with them. Like it's just a variable that doesn't need to exist, and you don't need to create that extra limitation into what you do because you don't know. And I think that's as simple as that. You just don't know what's going to happen with that. All right, we'll do one more question. Who's the best back-to-back stream Friday, Saturday? Is it Xavier Tillman? Now, I am just, unless you know that off the top of your head, Dan, who plays. I know there's quite a few teams who play the Friday, Saturday combination, but I'm going to bring that up so we can get into it because I'm pretty sure that Friday, Saturday is usually a time where there are a lot of back-to-backs on. Yeah, there are about 7 teams. So there's Grizzlies, Sixers, Warriors, Celtics, Wolves, Bulls, and Wizards. My eye immediately gets drawn towards the Bulls, especially if Alex Caruso is out, because we saw Pat Beverly, big numbers, Patrick Williams, big numbers, Kobe White, big numbers. So that my eye gets drawn there. My eye gets drawn a little bit to Washington. Maybe Kyle Kuzma is off the injury report that just came through, so maybe we can look at even a Gafford with 2 games, although he's pretty up and down. Tillman's an option for sure with 2 games across that back-to-back. But the other one I'd look at is with Draymond Green suspended 1 game for the Warriors, maybe Johnny Kuminga, and definitely Dante DiVincenzo where he's available. You've got a lot of options there with 7 teams holding that back-to-back. Anyone else stand out to you in that group?
I've been a big proponent of Dante DiVincenzo and just the role he's been playing without Andrew Wiggins. He's going to continue to get starters minutes, plays 2 ways, definitely a good boost for threes. Will hurt your field goal percentage, but I think that he's in a little bit of a shooting slump, but I think he does all the other things pretty well for the guard spot. So I do like him. I think Jonathan Kuminga is also another good call with Draymond Green being suspended for 1 game. He's going to be a high energy guy that could definitely sneak in some rebounds and some scoring as well. Xavier Tillman, I think, makes a lot of sense just given the situation of them playing against the San Antonio Spurs and the Golden State Warriors. That Golden State Warriors matchup, they like putting out Kevon Looney. He's been getting, even though if he's not starting, he's still going to be playing close to 30 minutes. They're going to need a big man versus the Golden State Warriors. So I think he'll definitely have a nice game against Golden State on Saturday night.
And that, guys, will do it for us for our live mailbag show. Dan, thanks for coming on. Tell people what you've got cranking out over at Yahoo at the moment. And, of course, you are doing your double shift, working and putting out the podcast over at NBC Sports Edge as well.
Yeah. Check out Round Ball Stew with me and Raphael Johnson, as well as some of my articles. Monday, got the waivers. Thursday, have a look ahead to week 23. So make sure you check that out if you're trying to plan your schedule in advance of the fantasy championships. And man, I'm around. So looking forward to this off season that's coming up, man. I got a lot of digging to do and course correcting from last season, but it's been fun.
We'll do, Dan. Thank you for coming on, and go check out Dan's work and, of course, the podcast with Raf over on NBC Sports Edge. Guys, that'll do it for us today. Don't forget to follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app and on YouTube. Here you are. Thumb it up. Leave your comments down below, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.